Call to order the June 20th, 2024 meeting of the Concord Transportation Advisory Committee. We have a quorum. I'll call the roll. Mary Anna Hill. Can you
I'm
confirm?
here. I'm present.
Yeah, thanks. Phil?
Here.
Nick?
Here.
And myself, Mark Galis.
Here.
Oh, and Dan, welcome.
Hi.
Dan, you're here. Okay, great. You're sort of breaking up, but we can see you. We can hear that you're here. In terms of, it must be your Wi-Fi.
Dan, try turning off your video and see if that helps with the audio. Nope, still breaking up.
Yeah.
You want to log off and log back on?
Okay. So just give a minute for Dan to get back. So Dan, if you can hear me, let us know that you're back on.
Marcus, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you much better now, all clean. And
Okay, good.
I can see Laura is here too. Hi, Laura.
Hi, sorry to be late.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, we have everybody here. It's wonderful. Marianne is here and so we got the full TAC membership. So I had sent out some draft minutes yesterday. I had sent them to staff late on Tuesday, forgetting Wednesday was a holiday. Did people get those and have they had a chance to look at them?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody have corrections or comments?
Was that more or less what I sent you?
Yes, yeah, Nick had prepared the minutes and I tuned them up just a little bit before I sent them out. I think they capture some important things from the meeting. Laura, did you have a chance to see the minutes? This is of May 30th.
I'm just
Meeting.
taking a look at them right now.
Okay, take a minute to take a look at them.
These look great to me.
Okay. Dan, any comments? Can you hear me, Dan?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Oh, he's not on. Yeah.
Oh, he dropped off again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
All
I
right,
haven't
Dan?
reviewed them, but I wasn't at the meeting, so I'll have to abstain from commenting.
Okay. Dan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mark.
Okay, you're breaking up a little again, but it's clearer than the
Can you
first
hear
time
me?
around. Yes, I can hear you now. So, did you have a chance to look at the minutes?
All right, Mark, I'm gonna have to go to another area. Yes, I did, and I
Okay.
did not have any changes.
Okay, great. That's all. So,
I move that we accept the minute. Second.
okay, Dan, do you vote to approve?
It's good.
Laura,
Hi,
Yes, yes, I
Yes.
approve.
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
and myself now. Okay, so we unanimously approved the
And-
draft minutes for May 30th,
And
2024.
Mariana.
Oh, Mariana, I'm
She
sorry.
abstained.
Thank you. Oh, she abstained. Okay.
Yes, I wasn't there.
On the meeting minutes front, I wanted to ask, I was trying to finish preparing the May 9th meeting minutes, but I
Mhm.
could not find the May 9th recording online, and I wasn't able to access them through the link that Elizabeth Hughes sent. So if I'll follow up with Elizabeth and the Minuteman Media Network to find out what happened to
Yeah.
I know that you sent the recording to Minuteman, but I can't find it on YouTube.
And the link that was in that didn't work.
I don't think that I had the right password.
Okay, so just send an email to me and Heather, and one of us will resend you the Zoom link.
Fabulous, thank you.
Okay, so next item is the chair's comments. I just have a few things to mention. So one thing is I asked Elizabeth and Heather to forward a notice that on July 9th, there's a webinar about the MBTA's fiscal cliff and the future of public transit. And so even though we're not responsible for the MBTA coming through Concord has a lot of significance for local economy and travel modes and all that. So I think it may be something of interest for the transportation interested public and for the TAC members. I guess I wasn't on a separate thing regarding the Concord Historical Commission. I was a little late to pick up on this, but the Concord Historical Commission is has hired a consultant to run a planning process to develop a community-wide historic preservation plan for the 21st century. And right now, if you go to the Historical Commission website, there is a link to a survey. I asked the chair if there were paper copies available for people who don't have access to computers or smartphones or don't use them, and was told there should be paper forms at the at least here at Kai's Road, but she was going to check into that some more. So because one of the important contexts and constraints on transportation infrastructure in Concord is historic preservation. I think it's important for us all to be aware of that and to kind of look, follow the process. It's also going to involve some more public meetings. Another very small thing is I happen to be in Porter Square, Cambridge, and I noticed that at the MBTA station, there was presumably, and it's probably been there a while, looked faded, a map of the neighborhood of the station indicating the main roads and things like that. And I had sent a note to Mimi and to Beth Williams. This may have come up before when we had discussions about wayfinding or whatever, but wouldn't it be nice if at Concord Depot, there was some kind of map that told people which way the town center was, which way to West Concord or to certain other locations. And it might be even something that the MBTA might have a plan for. It's a little hard sometimes to orient a vertical map, but if there were a horizontal map or even something painted on the ground, it would automatically point directions. I know that's a little crazy, but it's worth thinking about. Somebody could put a table somewhere there. And I know we've talked about the need for bike parking and potentially bike share, it had been tried at that place. So I think that's kind of an important nexus for transportation. So that's really all I wanted to say. I'm going to have more to say when we get into the second half of the meeting and talk about the comprehensive transportation study. So without further ado, I would invite our Economic Vitality Manager, Mimi Graney, to present the latest on the age-friendly Concord project. Maybe you could first tell us who's working with you. Is it MPO or is it?
So I'm working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We
Okay,
got a grant
MAPC.
through the state for a program called Community Compact. And that program is to help municipalities follow best practices in all kinds of different areas. There's a number of different ones to apply for. I applied for Concord to be more of an age-friendly community. So back, I believe it might have been 2018, the town signed on as part of a regional effort that was led by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council for communities saying they would be more age-friendly. And then there was a study done and it focused primarily on issues around transportation and housing for seniors. And then it doesn't, from what I can see, it doesn't look like that regional effort, it just sort of informed conversations, but there wasn't sort of some specific initiatives that came out of it. Then COVID hit and a lot of communities kind of left it to that. How some communities approach this, that they do like a age-friendly comprehensive plan. My thought was to approach this in sort of one actionable aspect. And as the economic vitality manager, I sort of looked at two things. One, that Concord has a very high percentage of senior residents. We have a lot of historic properties that make it challenging to be fully ADA compliant. And we have a lot of visitors who also are senior that would want to have accommodations to make the spaces more friendly. And recognizing that full ADA compliance is a high threshold and often involves dealing with a property owner, that there are still lots of things that a business owner can do to be more age-friendly that are incremental. It's not just about wheelchairs, there's all kinds of things about being more accommodating for folk with cognitive issues, with hearing, with vision. So we're doing an age-friendly business program. So I'm working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council to create a toolkit. And then we're going to be going out and working with the businesses to look at a checklist and sort of what are some things that they can do. And the checklist is sort of a way of kind of a sneaky way of doing a business training, because we'll sort of talk up through and be like, oh, you know, how bright is your lighting? Seniors really often have got some vision issues. It's good for everybody to be able to see the menu in front of them. Sorry, my computer's deciding to reboot. We're going to go through the checklist and have businesses sort of sign on. Fortunately, my computer decided to reboot anyway, so I'll have to log back on. I have a presentation to share with all of you. So we'll have sort of official age-friendly businesses that will then highlight on a website and then as part of the Visit Concord business directory. So as a first step, what we did was we went and have been reaching out to seniors. So we've had a couple focus groups and we've done a survey. And the survey was really widely distributed. It was available both online and in print. We distribute it through the senior center, the library, the Council on Aging, a bunch of, we worked with the Disabilities Commission, we worked with Minuteman ARC, and then we shared it really widely. I was going to the chairs breakfast and I've come to a bunch of different commissions. And so today I want to go over with you what the response to that survey is. So I made some print copies because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get on, and right now I'm only 30% rebooted. I'm sorry about this.
No worries.
Thank you.
All right, I don't want to take up too much time, so I'll kind of just go
We
through
have
this.
time, we have time. It's,
Well, sometimes it's, I'm still only at 30% rebooting, so.
that's okay.
I'll share with some of like the information that's not so data driven. So we got about 230 or so surveys, which talking to the folks from MAPC, which are serious statisticians, sort of said that that was a significant enough survey to be able to assume this is a robust set of data that we can assume is good, pretty accurate. One of the questions we asked is how often do the people who answered our survey, how often do they visit Concord businesses in person? And 99% of them said that they are visiting Concord businesses in person, which opposed to versus online. What was interesting is 67% said at least once a week, with an additional 13% saying every single day. So that means only 20% are visiting once a month or less. So that says to me a couple different things, that Concord Business is not only are they serving the regular shopping needs of Concord visitors and residents, but that there's a social component to it. That if you're visiting a business and going to the business districts every day, you're kind of, it's part of your routine. You're getting to know the business owners, and talking to some of the business owners, they do say that that's true, that they really get to know people's names, that they kind of get, there's a little bit more of a conversation that's happening. Then of those folks that we're asking people, sorry, hang on, it looks like I can log on again. So then we wanted to understand a little bit of the folks that are, who are the people that are visiting so regularly? So the folks that are coming every day are in the age range between 60 and 89, which maybe isn't, but that they're basically, a lot of older customers are the regular folks that we've got very active seniors into their 80s. And as folks are over 90, they're the ones that are less likely to be shopping every single day, which maybe makes sense just in terms of mobility and energy levels. And it was interesting that even the under 60 crowd are the ones that are still regularly shopping, that they're not necessarily doing online shopping, they're still regular customers. We asked about digital tools, so how much of an impact does shopping online, is that for Concord businesses? And it wasn't a significant portion. Maybe unsurprisingly, the older people were, the less likely they were to be shopping online and doing that themselves. Let me see if I can get back onto the Zoom with you all. Can folks see my screen? Yep. Great. Presentation. Let's get too many questions here, sorry.
So, Dan, Mariana, and Laura, you can see the screen, correct?
Yes.
Mini screen. And we can send out this, you can pass this PowerPoint on to Elizabeth.
Yeah. And you've got a teamwork, I think, too.
Yeah.
All right, so we just went through how often people are visiting. This is how often, basically by age range, how frequently folks are coming in person. And then how comfortable folks are using digital tools. So we're expecting that we're going to be focusing our efforts really on businesses that are shopping in person. One, because of, some of the focus of our attention is really how to make them more physically accessible. There are some age-friendly initiatives that can look at how to be able to make online marketing easier in terms of making sure that the descriptions on the images, so that it's easy for people who have visual impairment, making it easy for different types of sales, but we're not going to dig into that because it's part of the survey is telling us that that's not kind of worthwhile for our purposes. We asked folks on how often are they finding out about things in Concord, and you can see that Concord Bridge is far and away the most popular way, which I was glad that they ran a little article about our survey. And you can see like age, store-specific promotions, it's just kind of down with word of mouth that's not as much of an issue. And then here's where we were really digging into what kind of business changes folks were wanting to see in the Concord business districts as a whole. And you can see installing more benches is a key interest. And thankfully, in response to that, there was recently a grant the state put forward that was through the Office of Travel and Tourism for capital improvements that communities could make to advance travel and tourism, especially around the 250th. So I and my colleagues, we were able to put in a grant to install more benches. Well, crossing our fingers that we get that funding, but that was specifically for Concord Center and Thoreau Depot, and so looking at the pedestrian accessibility and also out to the North Bridge. Public restrooms was another one. And in some of our focus groups, we were really talking about how businesses oftentimes make their restrooms available. And sort of if you're a local in the know, you know where those are, but those aren't necessarily so accessible to folks who are visitors. And how might we be able to work with the businesses to kind of feature that a little bit more? Because so often it's sort of like, restrooms for customers only, and folks might not know about those. And you can see that there's other ones that are about kind of general pedestrian accessibility, the kind of things that would be interest to the
Yeah.
TAC.
Crosswalks, sidewalks, condition.
Yeah, more handicap parking. Folks talked about the handicapped parking, especially in terms of those immediately in front of the spaces folks want to use. So people felt that only having 2 spaces at the library wasn't really sufficient. That was one. Folks talked about, could there be more 15-minute parking spaces that have high turnover so that you could at least be dropped off? Or sort of thinking a little bit about curbside retail so that some of the businesses do offer, like you can call them up and you can pay for it, giving your credit card over the phone, and that they'll bring it to you at the curb. So if there was a 15-minute parking spot, that would serve a lot of different purposes.
How do you reconcile that with unregulated parking where there are no meters, there's no enforcement of time limits?
Right now, we have 2 15-minute parking spaces in Concord Center. I do agree with you that enforcement is always an issue, but that's.
Yeah, my real point is that I think removing parking meters is really in conflict with what they're looking for.
Yeah, well, right now the parking meters are, they at least say 3 hours. And
They aren't, there
So
are
the-
no parking meters.
well, the parking meters have a little sign that says, not being enforced, a 3-hour limit. And there was some complaints around the businesses saying that they weren't turning over frequently enough. So I, over a couple of weeks, went and wrote down all the license plates on all of the ones along in the Concord Center, and found that there were 3 scofflaws, and they were owned by business owners in the neighborhood. And so they,
Experience.
and they basically, they got a visit from the police department saying, please move your car.
I just want to point out that what the business owners ask for and what they do are not compatible.
Yeah.
And that
But it
it
did,
causes me to pay less attention to what they say they want.
Yeah. well, it was this consistently the same people, so that was
Yeah.
helpful. It wasn't like a widespread issue of all the
Mhm.
business owners.
Mhm.
And it also said to me that it wasn't the customers that were a regular problem, that there was there was significant turnover in the Concord Center. So then we asked we broke out those requested changes and we looked at the folks that reported that they had a disability. Those that folks that said they did have specifically a mobile disability, and folks who had any kind of disability, whether it might be cognitive hearing. We asked like a whole series of those, or people who are caretakers. And in this one, you kind of highlights like across the board, everybody wants benches. Who doesn't love a bench? And then it was interesting that the folks that maybe without surprise that wanted more handicap parking were folks with mobility disabilities and their caretakers. And then how do you rate the Concord businesses overall? And this was really nice to see, and kind of corresponded with my kind of view, was that overall Concord businesses are doing a great job in terms of their lighting, the noise level, the helpfulness of their staff. And maybe not surprising, ease of finding the restroom. That's why that kind of showed up as a challenge. The availability of indoor seating, and that wasn't so much about restaurant seating. That was, if you're at a shop, is there a little spot to sit if you're waiting by the cashier or if you're waiting by the changing room? And that was sort of overall kind of a big recommendation that we'll be doing with the businesses, of even just having a simple little chair would make it go a long way. And especially thinking about if we've got seniors who are coming every day and probably chit chatting, they probably want to make themselves a little comfortable, but even just more casually. And then moving through the aisles got a good, which was really nice to see, considering we've got some smaller size retailers, that they're still doing a good job of about doing displays that are easy to navigate around. Then we asked about ease of finding their entrance, which was also good. And ease of entering the building, which was nice to see that, you know, even where we've got businesses that might have a step up, or, you know, the handicapped entrance might be kind of around the back, that they still got an excellent or a good. There are a couple businesses that folks highlighted that would be helpful to just have a simple handrail there. So while there's a step to get in, or where the door might be a little heavier. And those are kind of smaller things that often the business owner, without the property owner's permission, would be able to do. And then the affordability of products, this is where things weren't quite as great. And that's where we can talk to the business owners about what they can do. There was one business owner I had chatted with, and she said after we started talking, she realized how many more senior customers she hadn't quite recognized, what a high percentage she had. And she started doing a program. A lot of the survey takers were saying like, oh, they should have discount days, or seniors should get a discount. And there's a lot of pushback from the business owner saying like, you know, that's kind of a hard thing to do across the board. They generally don't want to have widespread discounts. But this particular business owner, what she started doing was a frequent shopper program. So people got to have, you know, write down how often each time they bought something, they got it listed in this thing. And what it did for her is she got to know her customers better, a lot better. And she realized this one woman who she knew was a regular, but she would come to chit chat with her at the times of day, but then she was actually making the purchases at a different time with her employee. So she didn't realize the thousands of dollars that the senior was spending in her shop. And she's now creating frequent shopper discounts, and special shopping days, which does kind of emphasize that social aspect that a lot of the seniors are finding from the businesses. So there's ways in which we can kind of a win-win for both the business owner and the seniors who are wanting more affordable products. So there's many ways to skin a cat, as they say, and we're finding some good solutions to that. Then we asked what are some of this, here again, this where we asked folks what kind of programs they wanted, and here was the discounts, and we're gonna look at some ways to do that, even if the business owners, we can find those win-win solutions. Folks are wanting some quiet rooms in the restaurants and food venues. We don't have that many restaurants in Concord to begin with, but some of them do have little quieter spaces. We're looking at a model that had been developed by folks, families with members of their family with autism, and they had created this model called the Purple Table. And basically, they would specially train the staff at like one or two people from the restaurant. And that the restaurant would identify a quieter space in the restaurant that was, you know, without people jostling by, not as much background noise, not as many distracting patterns. And so if the family was going to go to that restaurant, they would reserve the Purple Table. And that specially trained staff person would be their wait staff. So if there was like unusual behaviors or needing to be a little more patient with taking the order, that they were able to accommodate that family's needs. And the businesses that participated said it was a great thing because they basically became the go-to restaurant for those families. And just, it was a real kind of big percentage of their business. And the same issues that are relevant for folks with autism often connect with folks with dementia. And so we're looking at the Purple Table model kind of fell off during the pandemic when everybody was in crisis, but we're looking at how can we maybe bring that back in some aspect here in Concord. You can see also in terms of some of the other programs folks are looking at is home delivery, maybe some programmatic things related to older adults. So that might be making sure that there might be a section of the clothing store that might be, or a lot of folks sort of highlighted specific businesses that they liked. Folks really liked Vanderhoofs on how well that you could just show up with something that need fixed, and they could, not only do they sell you the part, but they fix it for you at the same time. And folks really liked during the pandemic having special shopping hours, kind of early morning when it was a little quieter, that was just like, just only seniors in the store. And maybe some businesses might be willing to bring that back up. And then we asked, specifically, like, what were good, we're sort of trying to identify what are some of the businesses doing a really good job. So as part of this toolkit that we're creating, we're wanting to use specific examples of Concord businesses on how to do it right. So we asked seniors what they like. So there's Vanderhoof about the helpful staff. Folks also talked about Deborah's Natural Gourmet, the Cheese Shop, and the West Concord Pharmacy as great examples of their customer service. For Well Lit, Concord Bookshop came up a lot in a bunch of the categories. Deborah's Natural and Crosby's. Folks really liked the Concord, the Colonial Inn for dining out because they felt like there wasn't a lot of background noise and there was enough space. We asked about the front entrance, easy to access public restrooms, and the clear menu or list of products. Folks found that a little challenging because it's not kind of relevant to a lot of businesses, but they had some examples for those too. And then we asked, what were some of the specific interventions that they were recommending to make it more age-friendly? And folks brought up about handrails, more ADA accessible entrances, easy to open doors. And sometimes that could be just changing the tension on the door, maybe having a lighter door, having a push button one, but you can do it short of doing a full push button one. There's other ways of doing that. We've also, some folks from the Disability Commission had some really helpful suggestions about having like a little doorbell. So if folks do need assistance, that there's an easy way to alert the staff inside. Again, chairs and benches, everybody loves them, and more parking. And then some other things that people brought up. Folks said Deborah's is the perfect example that of a business that has targeted events for various needs. They offer senior discounts all the time. Lower noise restaurants, make it easier to hear your dining companions with no background music and low music volume. Folks suggested a consciousness raising seminar for owners on the huge number of seniors and how to be more welcoming. And folks should know that Concord has a very significant senior population, which is only growing, which is kind of statewide, but Concord is higher than others. Again, more about lower noise. Windows covered. It says, yeah, again, about dealing with walkers and making it more accessible. So if we have a little time, I'd love to sort of hear some feedback, take questions about our program.
Well, I thank you very much. I particularly struck by some, by many aspects of it. Encouraging people to walk and these kind of pedestrian amenities, I think is very important. It's good to get the across the board indication about benches, sidewalk conditions, and entrances to businesses. It's good to shine a light on that. I think with regard to parking, it spins off another thought in my mind that I don't know if anybody has looked at, which is if there are locations in town, like low-cost housing facilities or whatever, where there are a lot of people who may not have an automobile, whether there are any kind of shuttle services or things that businesses or the town might consider doing. I mean, it'd be interesting to find out if there are any existing kind of, swing by Crosby's or go to Deborah's or, things like that. Because, I'm thinking from the standpoint of how to make things accessible for more people, but also to not increase the amount of parking, required. And I think that, the one thing I guess that had come up is this significant fact that there's no public restroom in West Concord with all those businesses. And I do think that the lack of some facilities affects people's modes of transportation, where, somebody who lives 20 minutes by foot or a few minutes by car might be inclined to take a car if there's no bathroom available there and they want to kind of get in and out, et cetera. I don't know if that's completely off the mark, but I do think that, and another thing, of course, is that businesses probably benefit from people staying in an area for a longer time and feeling accommodated by benches, by restrooms, by whatever. So, and maybe feeling more comfortable parking a little bit out of the center again, if they, can feel comfortable staying in one of the business areas for a longer time. And not have to feel like, I just have to like dive in, do one thing and get out. So anyway, it just brings those to mind. Phil?
So
And
I have
I
a
know, I'll hit
question
you,
to
Laura.
follow up on Mark's comment about encouraging walking. The first question is, have you had the opportunity to review this with CPW and with the FinCom?
No,
Okay, so I would encourage you to reach out to FinCom members and to CPW. I think it's a great thing that you applied for the bench grant, and hopefully you'll get it. But one of the things that occurs to me is that the town has fiscal constraints with regard to installation. And, just putting a park bench somewhere, doesn't necessarily, accomplish the objective of having a place for someone to sit. So if you just plop it down somewhere, in the middle of nowhere, that's not gonna help. You need to plan it out. And then you need to budget for the installation part. So if you get the grant and, there's no budget for the town to actually do the work to install them, they're gonna sit somewhere in the DPW. So the follow-up question to that is, and, I don't know if you got this much detail, because it's pretty granular. Would the grant allow the merchants to sponsor something like installation in exchange for advertising? So is that something that's, absolutely off the table, or has that been encouraged in other places?
so for the benches, we did factor in installation, so if we get the grant. And I agree with you, like, we really want to think about the urban design overall. I know that the TAC is really looking at complete streets as a model, which that does include benches and that kind of universal design. So it's kind of out of the scope of my role with the town. But I hope that this data can help advance the type of transportation efforts that you all are doing. I want to sort of recognize that's not my place for leadership, but I will love to kind of amplify the type of efforts that are happening. And some of those types of efforts are kind of incremental. So for example, they're going to be moving forward with the crosswalks at Walden and Thoreau and Main Street. They're right there in the middle of Concord Center. So that will be kind of responding to some of this. As you probably know, it's much longer term projects. This particular effort that I'm going on is really sort of like, what are some of the quick wins that we can do to kind of help show the need and make some incremental impacts for now.
Okay.
Okay, Laura?
Yeah, I had a bunch of things come up, a couple of questions and a couple of comments. The first is that AARP has a wonderful walk audit toolkit. And I'm wondering if there are any plans to have walk audits of the business districts with, folks from the COA, members of the business community. I'm just curious if there are sort of follow-up plans for this survey.
So this program, part of what inspired me to do this is I had worked with AARP, and we were one of the kind of programs in another community that I was at. And so using a lot of their resources for this work. I would love to kind of do some of those walk audits. But right now, we don't have a transportation planner. I think that some of those needs are already there, so I'm focusing on the businesses and what they can do. But yeah, I would love to see like a next step on that side.
Awesome. A couple of other questions. Could you speak a little bit more about where the benches are planned for? Because I know that you are focused on the businesses. Are you talking about business, like benches that are against the businesses or like on the street or in parks? I'm curious just where you have those earmarked for.
Yeah, let me pull up my little map that we did. So what I did was I went around and I looked at what are some of the benches that are out there now. Let me get back and I can share screen.
And while you're pulling that up, I'll just make a comment that sort of to Phil's point, when we install benches, I think it's just really important that we make sure that DPW has a plan to maintain benches over time. I was doing some poison ivy identification with the middle school students 2 weeks ago, and I noticed that poison ivy is about to take over our beautiful benches next to the rail trail. There's like a nice seated area with a sign there, and the poison ivy is like about to touch the benches. And so I'd love to know what our maintenance strategy is for making sure that the benches remain usable. So yeah, go ahead.
So what I did was I went and sort of looked at what were the existing benches, and where we might want to put new ones. Sorry, I never use my computer in this with like just the keypad, so I'm like feeling very wonky like this. Like I'm like, what do I do without my mouse? Oh no. All right, now why is it switching? Hold on.
And you can speak in generalities. You don't need to show us a map if that's challenging.
Yeah, sorry, I'm technologically inept. Basically, they were along Main Street. I worked with Elizabeth and the deputy town manager and Beth from the visitor center. So we mapped, like right now, the library already has a lot of great accessible benches. There's one in front of Main Street's Market. There's one in front of the Christian Science Center. There are a bunch that are kind of in Monument Square, but we recognize those are like these big granite blocks that are a little too low. So we sort of looked at what are the best practices for a senior friendly bench, which has got arms and a back, and you can recognize that it's a bench. So if there was seating that didn't qualify, we've said it needed one. So there was one that was like right in Monument Square where that water fountain is. At the center, there was one we recommended there. I think altogether it was like 16 benches that we proposed. I'm sure that if should we get the funding, the funder would, once we get to implement them, if we want to tweak where those specific locations are. I just didn't want to get too in the weeds if we didn't get the funding.
Of course, of course. So they're mostly in the public right of way though?
Oh, they're all in the public right.
They're all in the public right of way. Yeah. Because like there are some places I can think of, like CVS, for instance, doesn't have a bench in front of it. And that's like a pretty important one. I had Lyme disease a couple years ago and I like couldn't stand up and I had to sit on the ground waiting for my ride to come and pick me up after I got my my prescription. So that was one of those places where I was like, man, seniors must have this problem all the time here.
Well, and yeah, so the ones that are those exactly that circumstance, that's where we're going to be working with the business owner and saying, can you put a bench in front of your business, inside your business to exactly that purpose?
Yeah, Laura, to your point, the town would not be able to expend funds to put a bench on private property without going through and, you know, it's an easement and then it's, who's gonna have the liability, and so it just, it becomes a little bit more complicated than sadly, just put a bench there.
Yes, I'm sure that's always the case. A couple of other just like comments that I was thinking, mapping, I just feel like is one of those things. Now, I don't know how much seniors are using Google Maps for things like this, but I'm wondering if it might be worthwhile to be mapping things like public restrooms and benches, as well as bike racks and things like that on Google Maps, so that if somebody is looking to plan a route, that might be helpful. And then the other thing that I had a question about was regarding bathrooms. Is this just a signage issue or is this like there are just many businesses that say like you're not allowed to use the restroom and they direct you to go somewhere else.
I think it's, folks, we asked specifically about public restrooms, so like in West Concord, they just don't exist. For the stores that might allow people to use a restroom, just, it sounds a little bit like just letting their customers know that they're available. Might be one. We will be adding this information to the Visit Concord maps. Maybe not all the benches. There is a new, and this isn't probably the most age-friendly program, but there's a new app that's specifically around mobility that they're trying to do. So it's sort of like the equivalent of like TripAdvisor or like Google reviews for people with mobility issues. So you can rate like how roomy is the bathroom? Is the front desk low enough? Could you push the door open? So I'm going to be looking at, as we're collecting data, adding that to their resources, because that's another way of adding, we're kind of recognizing that we're looking at universal design in this program too. So yeah, whatever, figuring out how to be able to help people map their visits is what we're trying to do too.
Is there a name for that app?
Yeah. hang on.
My last comment, it's more of a comment, is I was in Concord Center yesterday observing sort of the width of the sidewalks and comparing it. I spend more of my time in West Concord as opposed to Concord Center. So I'm just curious if it came up in your survey. The West Concord sidewalks post Complete Streets are so wide and so easy to navigate. And I'm curious, comparing it to Concord Center, which are incredibly narrow and very uneven, if that's been coming up in your outreach.
We've been talking more about the businesses rather than the streetscape. That kind of came in a little bit, but that hasn't been the focus of our work.
Yeah, okay. That's it for me.
Dan, you had your hand up. Do you have some questions or comments?
There we go. Yeah, I think Laura covered a lot of it. It just strikes me that if I were a business owner, this is gold. And for them to, I apologize. Hold on. It strikes me that if the businesses could buy into this information, they would be thrilled to take advantage of buying a couple of benches. But it does, in Concord Center, the width of the sidewalks is a real challenge. And I just, I hope that there are locations, for example, near the visitor center where more benches can be put in. The picnic tables there are very nice to see that. But if this presentation were made to the center's businesses, it would just be gold as far as I'm concerned. I apologize. I'm in a construction zone here.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
I always have a book recommendation, but there's a great book called Walk by Jonathan Stalls, and he talks about the pedestrian dignity movement, and he talks a lot about how municipal governments can be looking at things. He talks a lot about benches. So if you want a great book resource, Jonathan Stalls' Walk is great.
Yes, I was very interested to see that one of the programs that people want offered by the Concord businesses is home delivery options, which is actually something we mentioned in our transportation roadmap for Concord. And examples are, for instance, sometimes, unfortunately, it's more convenient to order something from Amazon than it is to, especially if you can't get to the store in the next day or two. But I have sensed no significant interest from the business community from something that people want. 42% of the people said they want that.
Yeah.
And I imagine to make it work in Concord economically, there'd have to be some sort of shared resource that they use, like a delivery service would have to be set up with multiple businesses employed, otherwise they can't afford to do it themselves. Although West Concord Pharmacy does it themselves. So I would say I would be happy to work with you, and the Transportation Advisory Committee would be interested, I know, in anything we can do to help support the development of delivery services within Concord for Concord residents by Concord businesses.
Oh, thank you. So I talked to like the library about their age friendly, and they do home delivery. And West Concord Pharmacy, some do it through if they do online selling, that they've got delivery that way. It was interesting to me that some of the businesses, specifically the banks, have a lot of age-friendly programs. So they actually have been going out to people's homes to set up their online banking for them sometimes.
But I wanna just jump in though. I do not think that things like DoorDash and those services have transportation benefits for Concord. I think because someone's gonna be coming, they're gonna be making one delivery probably, right? Where the transportation benefit comes in is in getting vehicles off the road by having a delivery vehicle make multiple deliveries.
Mm.
That's why I think to be beneficial from a transportation standpoint and to reduce traffic, we need the businesses to work together to a service that minimizes the number of vehicles on the road, not adding more with DoorDash and those services.
Nick, it might be an interesting thing to look into. Boston is doing a delivery service. They're funded by the Mass Clean Energy Center for an 18-month pilot program through the end of this year. And they are doing neighborhood delivery services using electric cargo bikes. So
What's the program?
it's a partnership with the Boston Transportation Department and a group called Net Zero Logistics. And they are providing local deliveries. I don't believe it's all over Boston. It's, I think, mostly in Allston and the surrounding area via electric cargo bikes. I don't know if we have the density to do something like that, but might be worth looking into seeing how that program has been going because it's an 18-month pilot.
Yeah, it might be worth kind of triaging which businesses it might make a big, so Crosby's, for example, might be kind of a key one rather than some of the boutiques or antique shops.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it might be, I mean, one thought that comes to mind would be if the businesses that currently offer these services might be willing to share with some other business owners at a meeting the challenges and benefits and whatever. So in other words, kind of learn from what's working in Concord in limited cases with some other people that might consider it or might have been afraid to consider it, but
Mm.
by, you know, being done, it's kind of daunting to think of, oh, we're already having trouble finding enough employees. Is this really gonna be a plus or minus, you know, financially?
Yeah.
Any other questions? If some members of the public wanna ask a short question, I would be entertained that. Ellen?
So Ellen, back in 206 Prairie Street, not a question, but it strikes me, as you probably know, that a new leaf has closed. And if you want to think of a good location in West Concord for kind of a park with benches and a sign that announces all kinds of events, that's golden. I realize it's private property at the moment, but that the West Concord Green Town uses it all the time for their flower sale, and the traffic there is amazing. I think that's the place. And I love the idea of a bench. Well, you know, type of trifecta, you need a bench, you need a restroom, and you probably need good signage.
Thank you. And,
I'll just comment as I have in other milieus where, you know, Mimi has presented. That there's something a bit ageist about what you're doing. You know, I'm old. But you know, a lot of the kind of things that I might need for accommodation, I don't. The only one where I really need an accommodation is for hearing. It's I think that what is age friendly overlaps tremendously with the work of the Disability Commission. And you know, what you're doing needs to be very much coordinated with, you know, the Disability Commission. These are accessibility issues. Accessibility issues exist for people of all ages. And certain ones may appear more often in the elderly people, but they can appear with people who are in their 20s or even children.
Mm.
So And in terms of funding for doing the kinds of things that you want to do, if you coordinate closely with Disability Commission and the disability community, the opportunities for funding probably increase.
I appreciate that because I have been sort of awkward with the age-friendly moniker. We inherited that. That's a term from the World Health Organization and AARP, and so we kind of got that name. But there's a whole part of this program that I didn't dig into, which is about encouraging the businesses to hire older employees. There's a lot of ageism that has people not want to hire older workers. How can they feature older customers in their marketing? So it's not all just, you know, the 20-somethings that they are shopping at their boutique. And it's come up even with that shop owner where she hadn't quite even been seeing her customers clearly about who her customers were. So I totally agree with you. There's kind of two things. One about kind of seeing the full range of who seniors are in the world. But it's also a sneaky way because, as you know yourself, there's a lot of discrimination around disability, and a lot of folks, as soon as you say like, oh, I'm doing a disability program, they don't want to hear about it. So it's our sneaky way of getting some accessibility that is more palatable for people, because I think that a lot of folks kind of can see themselves. Everybody can acknowledge that they're going to get older, but not everybody's acknowledging that they're going to lose some of their faculties, or that they are seeing the people of all ages with those. And so it's a way of kind of advancing some of those efforts.
I think accessibility is a much more everybody friendly term than disability.
Yeah, accessible Concord, accessible. I mean,
We just set up a new committee at our church, First Parish. It's a disability or an accessibility commission. One of the first things we talked about was what do we call it? And we've come down on accessibility. That's something that will be much more acceptable, you know, for a lot of people than disability.
yeah, I think shifting to that terminology and focus is important. I think it also relates to economic accessibility includes that kind of, which often overlaps. I'll get you, Laura. Tanya, did you have a quick comment?
Yeah, right. I mean, another way to get around that disability not being a popular problem is to say different abilities, and then if you want to sweeten the writing such as many older people, instead of assuming that all older people need the same thing, then we don't need this more perception in town that older people are all sort of need special needs, and but I was very impressed with your tracking license plate number. This is such great detective work, and I was also very moved by your observation that there is a social element to all this. It is very important, I think, in Concord that people gather in the centers. And one idea I had about outside of businesses that may or may not want to put benches was they could also have folding chairs for people who need them on a temporary basis. I mean, that would sort of more straightforward. Okay, thank you.
Laura, you had a comment?
I just had one more sort of idea. You know, one of the things that's come up in so many of our conversations is how do we establish more robust public transit options in the town of Concord. And a transportation management association like Crosstown Connect is something that businesses can voluntarily join in order to provide employees and customers more transportation options. So I'm just wondering if participation in some, you know, like a business participation in some kind of a traffic management or transportation management association is something that could be on the checklist. You know, if we're using this as an opportunity to engage the businesses in conversation about how to be more accessible, being accessible via public transit is possibly the most important, you know, age-friendly, accessibility-friendly, you know, climate-friendly policy. So I'm just wondering if that's come up already or if that might be incorporated into this as you move forward.
I'll bring that up to the business as I go along. I'm not quite sure, I wasn't planning on tabulating the information afterwards, so I might be only able to report on it anecdotally, but I will definitely include that in the conversation.
Good, good, that's staying cool?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mimi.
Thank you for the
Very
opportunity.
appreciated,
Perfect,
much
thank you.
appreciated and very important work. Thank you. Okay, Laura, you have your hand up still. Do you mean to? Okay, thanks. All right, so the next item on the agenda, this is where I put my agenda, is to talk about the comprehensive transportation study. And I have met with staff, and there's an agreement, I think a general agreement that TAC and staff, in order to better inform the consultant and help guide the study, TAC and staff need to get very much alignment and agreement on priorities and helpful actions, etc. And so even though we had some earlier conversations and suggestions about today having a meeting with kind of formal meeting with TAC and staff and perhaps the consultant, what I think now is the best way to move forward is we have some just a bit of further TAC discussion about kind of recapping and gathering what TAC thinks are the most useful things that could come out of the study for the town. And then at our next meeting, July 10th, have all the relevant staff hopefully present and have TAC and staff try to align their guidance for the consultant. And then at that point, we would have something clear and consistent to provide to the consultant as a guide for moving forward, completing the rest of the study. There's often desire to move things quickly, but I've been told that there's no particular deadline for completion of the study, and I myself think it's very important that we do it in the most effective way possible. And I believe that all of us want to make sure that TAC and staff with various degrees of expertise and various opinions about what's most important and most helpful going forward, that we're in as much alignment as possible before trying to inform the consultant Stantec on kind of like priorities for the study, because there's so many different aspects to transportation in the town. And another thing I wanted to mention, and then I'd really like to hear what other people are thinking, is as I was checking over Nick's draft of the minutes that we just approved of the May 30th meeting. In the beginning of the minutes, there was a recap and a reading into the minutes of a conversation happened in a sub-quorum after Phil had to leave the previous meeting and we lost quorum, so the formal meeting ended. And one of the things is Laura mentioned that, in looking at different cases of requests for safety improvements, such as the Haywood Street, Haywood Meadow area pedestrian crossings, that TAC, in line with its charge, should focus on policy issues and prioritization of projects, as opposed to, designs, engineering, or budget process that others will handle. And I agree with that very much, that it's really our job to focus on policy issues and prioritization. But I also want to add that I think that it's very important to keep in mind that policy is developed in a context. And projects are chosen and prioritized and implemented in a context, and the context in Concord is, special to Concord in terms of, historical, preservation concerns, say narrowness of sidewalks in Concord, Center, et cetera, et cetera. So, I do think that, I'll say one other thing, that I think that it's an important part of our job as an advisory committee to, communicate between the town, administration and the community, citizens in a two-way fashion, both in terms of trying to capture and collect and, sort out what the community members want and what their needs are regarding transportation, but also to help the community understand, the complexity of actually, planning and, funding and implementing changes, so that, in making any major initiative that's decided on, the community is brought along from the beginning, so that we don't have a situation, for example, of, staff or committees bringing something to town meeting and then having to, at that point, introduce it, to a public that is not already, really, understood the choices, the trade-offs, et cetera. And I know that there's a lot of effort goes into these things, but I think it's kind of our job to be that, to think of all these things in the context. So I would love to hear from the TAC members about, given all the conversations we've had so far, and we've written at least a couple of letters to, staff about what we thought should come out of the, comprehensive study with Stantec. But, I'd just like to take a little bit of time at this meeting to go around to the members and ask them to kind of mention, just a few things that they think definitely should, come out of the study. So I'll start with the people online there. Laura, are you, still communicating? Thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
So if you could, I hope people agree this is a useful thing to do, but, if you had to name, 2 or 3 important things. I know that you talked before about, at a previous meeting about, and in a draft letter, about, complete streets, and I've since, as you had suggested, looked into it a little bit more, and I think, even the federal complete streets guidelines talk about flexibility in terms of dealing with the actual conditions in the town and all that. So, I think that context and how things apply to Concord is something important. But anyway, please, share your thoughts.
Well, I think the first thing that I think that the big thing that is the uncracked nut for us in Concord is, how do we establish a public transit service that serves the needs of our residents? It's one of those things that's we don't have a staff person who is in charge of that. If and when we are able to hire a new transportation planner, that will be under their jurisdiction. But it's such a huge problem. And I was like, this came up for me last week. I was talking to some folks. They were asking me about what happened to the trolley. Why hasn't that continued? How do we establish public transit to serve the new 40B development that's going in near the Thoreau Club? And I was trying, and to your point, Mark, us being the communicators in the community about how complicated these issues are, I was explaining to them, like, well, the trolley was funded through a pilot yeah, it was a pilot funded through a grant and the grant wasn't renewed and we don't have any funding in the budget for public transit. And it's very difficult to raise money for public transit. And so I feel like that's one of the big things that I really hope Stantec can help us crack is like, what are some of our options in establishing and funding a public transit service? Because it might need to go to town meeting with some kind of an article raising new funds for that. There's no way that we're going to grant fund our way into a public transit service that works. And it has been so clearly articulated as a need by many different constituencies in the community. So that's like my number one priority for the study. And then also, how do we implement complete streets more uniformly throughout, the business districts and the most walkable places? How do we prioritize projects? And I think part of my big thing is like, how do we maintain sidewalks and crosswalks such that people feel comfortable getting around without a car? Because the sidewalk condition is so poor, and we have so little, DPW has so few resources to maintain those resources. And so how do we communicate the need for that better? How do we prioritize that in our budgets better? How do we do it more economically? I don't know if that's a possibility, but yeah, those are my like top priorities.
Great, thank you, Laura. Dan, are you in between drilling?
Not really, but I mean, I'd have to say that those would probably be my top two as well. That it's always the funding problems, and how do we realistically get beyond this trying to grant fund things that just peter out, and manage to have something that's self-sustaining. And maintenance is such a, as Laura says, the sidewalk issues in town, maintaining sidewalks and bikeways, it's all just so challenging finance wise. So those would be my priorities as well. Here comes the drilling.
Thanks, Dan. Phil?
So my recollection of being at the town meeting last year during the discussion of the DPW budget was that the select board and the financing committee were looking to us to provide recommendations with regard to transportation initiatives, priorities, and funding. And my take on the conversation was that the DPW was going to come back again with a fully funded budget recommendation. And it would be rejected again unless we do our job. So why I agree with the subject areas that other folks have mentioned, I think we need to move forward in a pretty brisk manner, set a time frame by which we are going to get Stantec to act, get them cracking, get the public back involved, and get this done in time for the next budget round. I think the town recognizes that infrastructure funding of all sorts, both the road network, sidewalk network, the buildings, has been neglected for a long time. And my sense is that there's going to be more appetite to address it, but I would not like to see the TAC become the excuse for the town to not take action. So we need to move forward briskly.
I just want to second that. So strongly. Like, we don't need to wait another 18 months to say, like, we need to spend more money on sidewalks. Like, we should be able to say that by September, so it can be in the next budget cycle.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds like there's very strong agreement. What priorities are. I think one thing that's missing that I am going to try to create before the next meeting is a document. 2 years ago, we went to the select board and we presented a transportation roadmap that was necessarily very sparse at the time, and I think that needs to be fleshed out a little bit. So my intent is before the next meeting to come up with sort of an enhanced version of that brings these things together. and says, these are our transportation priorities and these are the issues that we need to be addressing as a town. So,
Mariana, are you online?
Yes,
see
I'm
you.
here.
Okay, do you have some priorities that you want to add
I
to the
think,
list?
I'd love to see us come away with, a system for identifying specific infrastructure improvements in town and how to allocate, the budget for those, and taking the community input we've gotten. And I think, I'd love to see Stantec help us develop a framework for assessing, all those recommendations, that we can kind of take and run with in the future when we're not still working with Stantec. And start to kind of on it, either like an annual or an ongoing basis, have a system for ranking the priorities of different improvements that the public has asked for, and the associated costs with those, and reconciling that with the DPW improvements budget.
Thank you. That sounds very good.
I also want to second that strongly.
And also the policy stuff others have said, second everything.
Okay, good. I think we're moving to some
Terry
consent.
has her.
Oh, Terry?
Hi,
Hi,
thank
Terry.
you.
I
Hi,
didn't see you there. Sorry, I apologize.
that's okay. I wanted the committee to go first. So a lot of great ideas. I'm really happy that there's not a deadline and we can go thoughtfully. At the same time, I agree, we have to be ready for town meeting. I know the town manager intends to bring forward a borrowing plan for the roadwork and other infrastructure. So as someone said, we need to get Stantec cracking. We need to be ready for that town meeting. And the more input TAC can have in that, the better. It's important for the staff and TAC to align. I like that, Mark. But what I really think went wrong before is that the consultant has not heard directly from TAC. I think that is so crucial. For example, Nick's roadmap, Laura's idea about a criteria framework. There are so many good ideas on this committee. And I don't want to see us make the same mistake again where we meet with staff and then one of the staff members is supposed to email Stantec. Something is getting lost in that translation. If Stantec could come to the next meeting and listen to you guys for half an hour, so much will be accomplished.
Thank you. I want to suggest something that an approach here, that if Nick is willing to put together a document incorporating what we have presented to the select board before as priorities, what has just been kind of clarified with quite a bit of consensus I see as priorities from the members. We can review that document with staff, all the staff present who are involved at the next TAC meeting. And that document can be one of the guiding documents that Stantec is asked to consult, because in the existing scope of work, it's already there that Stantec should do its work, taking into account a number of documents. And I think that the benefit of doing this, rather than just having, I mean, we can certainly have Stantec at a later meeting, but the benefit of doing this in this fashion is that we will have at our next meeting, hopefully, the ability to make sure that the terminology, the categories, the ways that we as TAC make our recommendations align closely and mesh with what staff's deeper expertise in these matters knows is the most effective way to inform the consultant and the plan. Because I believe that going around the members, we have said some very important and meaningful, stated some important and meaningful goals and important ones, but the way that these are framed, for example, you know, when you talk about maintenance, you know, there's sidewalks, okay, there's roads, but there's road surface, there's culverts, there's bridges. I think it's important that we you know, in order to facilitate informing the public of complexities, we have to be very careful that we're precise in and aligned with staff's expert opinions on how these different categories interact. And even when we talk about implementing safe, for example, public transportation, we need, I think we'll be more effective if we can be precise, and that we provide this document to the consultant that has you know, represents a comprehensive agreement between the members of TAC and the staff involved. So I'm hoping that will work, and in this way too, TAC has a way of informing the consultant with our own document, but it's actually carefully aligned and clarified with staff. So I think this is the fastest way to do things. We don't have any correspondence. Terry, did you want to make any further comments?
Well, I think that's actually a really good idea. I agree it should be precise. And if it's tax document or a document that TAC and staff agree to, and that document can go to Stantec. That does sound really good.
Yeah, and we can have a later meeting after, you know, with Stantec to further go back and forth and clarify any remaining questions. But I think that way we
Yeah.
get something concrete, and it's and we've already pre-aligned with staff. I think that, and taken advantage of the expertise of staff. I think that's very important in making this more effective.
So is that actually doable for the next meeting? That we could get that document agreed to?
I think so, if Nick
Yeah,
agrees.
I'll get it done as soon as I can, you know, in less than a week, let's say, within a week of today, I'll have a draft that we can circulate, people can think about it.
Nick, can you send me the current one?
Yeah, I know.
I'm
it's
having
kinda-
a hard.
The thing I was referring to is the original presentation to the select board, which was only a couple of pages, that was 2 years ago. I'll send it to you.
But I'm
Okay.
I'm having a hard time finding it.
Yeah, just send me an email reminder, that's all.
So,
Perfect.
just so we agree on this, so, you know, sometime substantially in advance of our next, I believe it's July 10th meeting, if you can send Elizabeth a draft, and if that can actually be posted and then distributed to TAC members, I'd like to see it posted online so that we're completely in compliance with open meeting law, and then everybody can kind of, you know, mark that up privately themselves, bring their edits and things to the next meeting, and we can finalize that document with the assistance of staff that will have had a chance to review it also and say, this isn't clear, this is not the most helpful way to
Right.
to phrase this, or
Just a question for, maybe for both Elizabeth and Tanya. If we post that publicly, if I do a draft in about a week or so, and we post it publicly, is it okay to have anyone who wants to, the public and members of the TAC and others, send feedback to one place that I could look at in case there's anything I want to incorporate into a revision?
I don't think that's,
If that's all public?
I would think Elizabeth, that the public can write anything anytime to anyone, so it's a posted document as they
So,
would write to. the
But I would just
public.
want it all sent to one place so I can know all
They
the
could just
feedbacks in
write
one
it to the
place.
whole committee if they wanted.
So you send me the draft document,
Yeah,
we can post it to tax website.
yeah,
And if anybody wants to comment, they would provide their comments back to me.
okay, so
And
you,
then-
that would be part of the posting, is any comments on these would be appreciated, send them
Yeah.
to Elizabeth
Well,
Hughes.
the public, my understanding is the public can send comments, that's fine. TAC members
We're part
should
of the
not,
public, I don't.
well, not.
We're just sending to you, we're
Yeah,
not
yeah, so-
conferring,
so-
we're not conferring.
But it's no different, individually, TAC members can send me
Yeah.
their
And
comments.
send it
what
to
I'm
you, yes.
And I can, I can put
You
them
can
all
think of
together
it.
and, work with Nick on.
I'm just trying to
updating.
make some progress before the next meeting based on a draft, that's all. I just wanna,
Yep, they can send it to me and I can work them into, an updated draft.
okay, good.
Okay, and publish that, 'cause this is, we want this to be a public,
Yeah, I
process
want it to
and
be as
bring people
public as
along.
possible,
Yeah,
and we
it's
just
not-
don't, we want it to go
no
as quickly
problem.
as possible, that's all.
Not a problem.
Okay,
So-
Laura. I'm
Just
sorry,
a quick question, or just a quick comment on this discussion is Nick, as you're pulling together this this document, if you could make sure to refer back to the memo that the TAC sent to staff on February 1st, that it was the memo was called TAC recommendations on the comprehensive transportation study next steps, because that outlines three buckets that should be included in the study. So I just don't want us to duplicate that work. So I'll forward you that email, because that was
Good.
the document that we created together to kind of work on those next steps. So if it can be an expansion of that document rather than a new document, that I think that would be very helpful.
Okay,
If you can, and just include me on emails that are going back and forth, that would be great.
And I have just one
Yes, Phil,
quick thing.
please.
Assuming that we make some progress at the next meeting, what is the committee's sense of having Stantec come in and sit with us at the following meeting, which would be at the end of July, I think?
I think it's good if we make progress at the next meeting, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I
That
mean,
should be the goal.
because that would be, it would, that, if we can approve this document, that can be added to the list of what Stantec should review. And they could potentially be invited to the next TAC meeting later in July.
Yeah.
To go over it, what did they understand from it, or did they have questions?
So my suggestion as a follow-up would be to give them a heads up that, this is getting put
Okay,
back onto the radar screen and this
Okay.
is the expectation and.
yeah, good point. Yeah, and I'll have to, Elizabeth is here, so she can hear these expectations about what the next and the next meeting might involve, but I'll have to let the rest of, Steve DeCron and Alan and Megan know.
Yes,
Okay,
I
I will do that.
am not the project manager.
No, okay. All right.
So who
So that's my
is the
job.
project manager at this point?
Steve,
Steve
Steve,
DeCron is assigned. as
Okay,
the
so yeah, so
point person.
maybe communication with Steve.
Thank you,
and
Phil. Yeah, that's a
to
good idea.
just,
Yeah.
tell them, because who knows whether or not the same staff people at Stantec are, still tasked with this, because it's been quite a while and people move on and.
no,
Yeah.
they're still there.
Okay, if no member of the TAC has a further comment on this, I'll just move to public comment. I think, unless Terry wants to say something, does any member of the public want to speak?
Tanya gave us 62 Prescott Road, I just want to.
Speak louder, speak louder.
Tanya gave us 62 Prescott Road, just about the correspondence that you've decided on. I would urge that, if the public has anything to say on the draft, you can, literally forward it to the whole committee, so you all know what the public is saying in advance of your meeting. And also that if each of you sends feedback to Elizabeth and just to make sure I think that the feedback is then given back to you anonymously. Right, Elizabeth? In other words, if Mark writes something to you and they'll write something to you and you send them all to Nick, that's still.
No, that's not what I said.
Yeah,
I said
yeah,
people
yeah.
will send me comments. I will
Thank you.
consolidate those comments
Yeah.
and forward
Thank
them
you
to
very
Nick.
much.
Oh, yeah,
thought
and
so.
consolidate them anonymously.
Thank
You won't say Mark said
Thank
this.
you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
So we're just, it's important to all be on the same page.
We're,
Really
we're
helps.
pretty up on the open meeting law.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So some
Okay.
people.
Any other public comment? No? Okay, thanks. Then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
So-
It was great to see the full membership here. I really appreciate your,
Thanks for bringing your new addition, Mariana.
yes, yeah. Thanks,
Good to
Laura.
see